What was your understanding of the strategic importance of Iwo Jima at the time?
Well, at that time, we didn't know where we were going. So we were training. We done a train. We had a lot of training in Camp Pendleton, and we moved from Camp Pendleton to Hawaii, Camp Tarawa in Hawaii, and that's where we set up for the actual invasion of Iwo. But we didn't know. They don't tell you where you're going. We're doing the maneuvers and everything else that we have to do, but they don't tell you where you're going to go because they figure guys might jump ship or something like that, you know. So actually, we didn't know at the time where we were at. We were just in there training. We knew we were going to go into action for some reason, but I think what I think most of the training was for at the time. Our thinking was we were going to go to Japan.
Okay. Invade the home island.
Going to go invade Japan. That's what.
And you knew you'd be invading an island because that had been the pattern all through the war.
But when we went to Tarawa, after we got to Tarawa, we had some guys in there that was in other battles, you know, other like Saipan and our Tarawa and like that, you know. It was in there, and they were older guys, and they started figuring it out. The shape of the island we were in and all like that, and they got a map, and when they got the map, then they found out. And after we left Hawaii, we knew where we were going.
So the army would give you a map to practice with, and you were able to figure out.
We never had that, no.
Oh, but they wouldn't tell you what it was.
Yeah, our officers they knew what was going on, but they didn't tell the troops. We just done what we had to do when we went out for the maneuvers. We made the maneuvers. We come back to the barracks and like that, and that was it.
Okay.
But they didn't tell you. They didn't tell us where we were going. Yeah.
How many men in your platoon would you estimate had previous experience in an invasion?
Oh, I said at least a third of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they help you kind of learn what to expect?
Oh yeah.
Share their experience?
Because like I had in my mortar in the mortar section I was in the 60 millimeter mortars, and I had the section that I was in. I know there was at least 5 or 6 of them was veterans in there, had previous landings.
Okay.
Yeah.
When were you trained with the 60 millimeter mortar?
Right from the time I went into Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
When they assigned me to the Baker Company, then they assigned us to whether you're going to be mortar, machine gun, field or foot loggers or whatever they're going to be, you know. And I was put in the mortars and that's when I trained right from Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you describe for me how the 60 millimeter mortar operated, like how you fired it, how many men it took?
Well, it was actually in 3 pieces. It was a tripod or a bipod, a barrel, and a base plate. Now the barrel was about I don't know, about 2.5 maybe 3 feet long, something like that. It was smooth, what they called a smooth bore. Mm-hmm. It was what they actually called it was the company commander's weapon of opportunity. See? The company commander. Now we were in there, and when when we were in action, if the company commander got word that there was a bunch of Japanese or something like that up in there like that, he could tell us to shoot some shells, some mortar shells up in there. And actually, what it was, and it weighed 60 pounds. So actually. And it had a sight. You had a sight, and you put the sight on there, sight it in, and then you would get your orders to elevate or traverse or whatever it was like that. It elevated it up, and it shot about 2,000 yards. That was about the maximum range on it was 2,000 yards.
And what part of it was your responsibility? amongst
Well,
that?
at one time I was a gunner, and then I was an ammunition carrier.
Okay.
And when I hit the island, I was an ammunition carrier.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many pounds were you?
When we hit the island, it was 60 pounds. It was the first time we ever carried that much ammunition in. 20 rounds. It was 20 rounds. They were 3 pounds apiece.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you find out that you were shipping out for an invasion?
When we left Camp Tara in Hawaii. I forget. I can't think of the date. The date of that.
Was there any kind of send-off for you?
No, they just put us aboard transports. We went from transports to Saipan, over to Saipan, and then from Saipan we got on LSTs, or LST. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a landing ship tank. That's what they called them. Yeah.
And what was their purpose?
Well, that's what carried us in the Iwo.
Okay.
From Saipan here, I was on what they called let me see. I don't know if I got it here. I think it's in the book here.
Okay.
It was a tractor. We called them Amtraks. It was like an Amtrak. It was and our name for it was alligators.
Okay. This was different than the Higgins.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
the Higgins. But this was like a tractor that carried troops.
Okay.
And if it ever stopped, it just sank. That was it.
Did some come in Higgins and some come in
Oh
LST?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you were in the LST.
Yeah, I was in the Amtrak. Yeah. Was it? I think I can't think of the name of it now. Landing. Oh, that's right.
That's okay.
Yeah.
What kind of practice, training, rehearsal runs did you do to prepare for Iwo Jima? Do you remember if there were practice invasions or training missions?
Oh yeah, there was always that. Yeah, even when we was in California, in Camp Pendleton, we done that. We went out on ship.
Okay.
And we was out on ship maybe 2 or 3 days or a week or something like that. And then we come over the side when the rope at the time, lower we practiced lowering the water down into the boat. And we was on the LCVPs at that time.
Okay.
And we went in. Then we made the landing, made a practice landing, as it were, on one of the islands out there. And then from there, we'd go in and practice setting up our mortar, and like that. And then we had three mortars in that section, and each one of us was set up and put it like that. So we'd have a certain area we'd be able to hit,
Okay.
And we were overlapping one another, so they got.
Did they try to simulate the sounds and the experience
of
battle for you?
They had what they called an aerial bomb. They would set off. You go up, you'd be running along. That first thing that would blow up on you, and you would jump. Because you didn't know where they were at.
Right.
But then it was a simulation of an invasion, is what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, obviously today, in your own words, what's the importance of Iwo Jima? Why was that an important island for the U.S. Marines to capture?
Well, from Saipan, these here bombers were taking off and going over and bombing Japan. And as they were coming back, a lot of them were getting losing gas, couldn't make it, and all like that. So they lost a lot of planes. Coming on the way to Japan, it was all right.
Mm-hmm.
But they would get shot at once in a while when they passed Iwo, But then they would they'd go in, they bomb Japan, they'd turn around and come back. And if they didn't have the gas, they would lose the plane. They'd have to ditch it.
Okay.
And that was a big plane. That was B-24s.
Yeah. How many pilots would there be in a B-29?
In a B-24, there would be the pilot and the co-pilot.
Okay.
But they would have a crew.
Yeah.
They would have crew. They'd have the gun crews and bomber crews and like that. And the bomber and bombardier, he would be in that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. So that was an important plane.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And Iwo, why they took Iwo Jima was it had 3 airstrips. Well, it had two airstrips that was built, and they were building the third.
Okay.
And that would have been a stopover. That would have been, if any of the planes were in trouble, they could have landed on there. They could have saved the plane, or anything like that. Anything was going on the way back, or something like that. And then what they were doing, they would take pictures. Cameras. They had cameras on there. On the way up, and the way back, they would take pictures of the island, and they had all these your islands. And if you look behind you, there's a map of Iwo Jima.
Okay. Oh wow.
That was taken. That map there is 3 months before the invasion, and it shows where all the Japs were jabbed, where their position, where gun positions were, and all this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Like I had no in there, and it was an important island. Yeah. If it wasn't, they would have bypassed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember leaving Tarawa and going to Iwo Jima? Was there? I would imagine leaving Hawaii, there'd be some sort of like temperature drop. Did it get colder as you got closer?
Oh no, we were aboard LSTs, like I said at the time, and we had the track. See, they carried the tractors. They had an LST. They had the front. It fell down. It opened up, or it didn't fall down. It opened up, and a ramp fell down, and we drive the tractors off of that ramp. See, and that's what we were in.
Okay. So from Hawaii, you drove to Iwo in the LST.
Yeah. No, from Hawaii, we went into we had Eniwetok first, and then from Eniwetok into Saipan, and our jumping off point was from Saipan into Iwo.
Okay, and you made that trip in the LST, or you
No,
made it in a
we made a trip
battleship?
in transports from Hawaii to Saipan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever get seasick on board ship?
I didn't know.
Never.
No, I like to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many ships, just in your own estimation, were part of this invasion force?
Oh, I don't know. At the least amount, like I say, would be 300. They would have had all different kinds of ships there. They had destroyers, they had battleships, they had aircraft carriers, they had everything out there. Yeah. Yeah.
What did you do on the transports to pass the time? You play cards, or
most of the time we go into school. They'd have well, we knew where we were going when we went from Saipan to Jiwa. We knew we were going to Iwo.
Okay.
But they would come up and they would have maps, and then we'd have to go up there, and we'd go up there, and they would show us all the time where you're going to land. This troop is going to land here, and we're going to go from there. We're going to go in the island, cut the island off like this. This group would go there. This group would go there, and it was all different all different schools and all like that. You would.
What about when you were in your bunks with the guys, or on downtime? Was there anything? Would you write letters home, or do anything to pass the time?
You try to write letters. I wasn't a real good letter writer though.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd write letters. You listen to music, whatever, and talk over what you think is going to happen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would you write to if you did write letters?
Oh, my mother.
Mother.
Yeah.
Did you receive letters from her?
Oh yeah, I
received.
Yeah. But when I was on Iwo, we didn't get any mail from Hawaii. From Hawaii in Iwo Jima, I didn't get any mail.
The entire time.
Yeah, all that entire time, man.
When did you learn that February 19th would be D-Day?
I guess it was a couple days before we got there. We got there to the island.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they told us, and they were prepared. We knew we were going to hit, because we were in the tractors. We had everything, all the equipment and everything was put in the tractors and everything. Whether we needed, all we had to do was just get in the tractors, take off.
Yeah.
That's it.
Did they tell you how long they expected it to take to capture this island?
72 hours.
72 hours.
Yeah. It took 26 days, 26 or 27 days. Yeah.
So they weren't prepared. They didn't know how well the Japanese had defended.
Oh yeah, they knew. They knew, because they were bombing this thing like about 3 or 4 months ahead of time. Every time that the bombers would go over the bombs that they didn't drop in Japan, they would drop back. They would come back and they'd drop them on Iwo.
Okay.
So they were bombing, and the assault, our initial assault, they shelled it and bombed it with torpedo planes like that. Well, they weren't torpedoes they used, but they were bombs.
Mm-hmm.
And we would go up there, and they would for 3 days. Or 72 hours, 72 hours, 3 days. They shelled it and all like that before we hit, before the first wave went in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they give you any type of special meal the night before?
Yeah, steak and eggs.
Okay.
Yeah, all the troops. I was reading in a book. 20,000 troops got steak and eggs before they went in.
Okay.
There was a lot of steaks and a lot of eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were there any other privileges or any other things they gave you?
No. They just told you that you took a couple pair of socks and it's anything you could keep you dry. If when after you hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the scheduled H hour?
9 o'clock.
9 a.m.
Yeah. We rendezvoused about 8:30. We went out. What they do, they come out and they circle. They keep circling around like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then they got an officer who sits up there in a boat. And when he raises that flag, he had a flag, and he raised that flag, and that means they had different signals. See,
Mm-hmm.
and after we get in a circle, then they would come up. Then they would tell them to get in a skirmish line. And we'd be in a skirmish line. And then they raise the flag, and then, zoop, there we go.
Time to go in.
Yeah.
Did you sleep at all the night before?
Me? I was on mess duty.
So you didn't have a choice?
Now see, we found up in before we left. Before we left California. They wouldn't give us no liberty like that, so we took it. Okay? So we went out. We went down to this here
AWOL.
Oceanside. That was the little town before at the end of the outside of the camp. So we got in there, and when we were in there, my two buddies, Paul By and Bob Atkins. Well, we got over there, and this here truck come by. And he said, they're going into Los Angeles. So we said, all right, hop on. So we hopped on. So we figured we'd be back in time. We didn't get back in time. I got drunk.
What was the...
I was 19. We figured they had whiskey. They were giving 7-Up whiskey on it to a thing. And me being a big shot, I'm down to whiskey. I got drunk. So when we were in there like that, they wouldn't. My buddies, that we got come back. It was too late, and I was drunk, and they wouldn't come back, and they wouldn't leave me in L.A. by myself. So they waited for me, and so the three of us was over. It was actually AOL. We was over to leave, and we didn't have a leave.
Yeah.
See?
What was the reprimand?
So when we got back, and I had everybody was signing my shirt, my pants and everything else, my shirts and everything else, because they knew we were going. And they we got back to the camp, and the first thing the first sergeant says, "Don't change." He says, "You're going up." We went over and seen we had office hours. The colonel wanted to see us, and the first thing he said to us, he says, "Do you want to go in action with me?" And we better say yes. We all said yes. And so he says, like that. So he start go up there, and I told him. And he says, "You got anything to say?" And I told him, I says, well, Colonel, I said, it's my fault. He says, why? I says, I got drunk. And I says, my two friends here, they didn't want to leave me in L.A. by myself, so they stayed with me. That's no excuse, he says. So he turned around, he says to me, being you're the culprit, he said to the first sergeant, you got things for him to do? First sergeant says, yes, sir. I went back, and from the time that we went back and we went in office hours until the time we got aboard ship, I had all kinds of duties. Everything that when they wanted to send a truck in to unload it on the docks, I was on it. If it was coming back, I was on it. If it was in the docks, loading barrels up and stuff like that, I was doing it. First sergeant made sure, and then when we got over at Tarawa, yeah, that was our camp. Tarawa in Hawaii. It wasn't too bad, but when we were on board ship, he put me on west duty. We were going from Saipan to there, and I was there, and I was washing pots and pans, and that was my pre-evasion day time, washing pots and pans.
So you were on mess duty the night before the invasion.
Yeah, I was on mess duty.
So you didn't get to.
No, we got on the Amtrak at 7:00 in the morning, and I didn't get out of mess duty till 3:30. So I had from 3:30 till 7:00 to get my gear ready to put it on the tram track to get ready to hit the beach.
Did they give you breakfast that morning?
Oh yeah, that's what I told you. It's steak and eggs.
Okay, that morning as well.
Yeah.
Was it somber, or were guys joking around to try to break the tension?
No, everybody was just. I think they were in their own thoughts. You know. It wasn't no big joke. Oh, we're going to hit this or we're going to do that. You know, like that. We're going to kill them all. No, it wasn't that.
Okay.
They were just more or less thinking of their own thoughts. You know. Yeah. And then the other guys was telling us too what to expect. The older guy, what to expect when we hit the beach. You know. Yeah. Yeah.
So 7 a.m. you get onto the LSTs.
Yeah.
And so you would have been hovering in the water for about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Before going in.
Yeah.
Which wave of the attack were you?
First.
Okay.
I hit the beach at 9:00.
And was this the first time you saw the island?
Yeah.
What were your impressions?
I looked at it. Well, at that time, I don't think I had too much of a impression because I was tired. I looked at the beach. I seen it, and I didn't think I was going to get shot or what. I didn't know what to expect. But like I say, we went in, and our Amtraks. Well, that's what I was in the Amtrak. They call them the alligators. When we hit the beach. Well, it got stuck because of the volcanic ash. Mm-hmm. They couldn't move. And then the front wouldn't come down. The front would come down with them things, you know. Yeah. And that didn't come down, so we had to go over the side. So we went over the side. Okay. Yeah.
Was there any talking in the or in the LST as you were driving to the beach? Were guys talking to each other? Were they quiet?
Not much. You know, just like I said, the older guys was in there. They were telling to keep our head down and watch. You know, don't go popping your head up like that to look around and like that because you're going to get shot.
Yeah. Did any of that information help you?
Oh yeah. Because when I went down, I was eating that dirt.
That dirt was, you said it was volcanic.
Volcanic ash.
Yeah. Do you remember what it felt like? What it smelled like?
Yeah, I got some in the other room there.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you remember a strong scent? I mean, they called it Sulphur Island.
Sulphur. Yeah, sulphur smell. Yeah, it stink. You know, you go in and you smell sulphur. I don't know how it smelled. You would say it would smell, but it had a stinking smell to it. Rotten eggs smell like rotten eggs when you get on to it, you know. And you get on air like that, but you didn't think about that. All you thought about was getting where you were supposed to, keeping your head down, and not getting shot. They're not. It was coming around. They all kinds of ammunition coming around. They were bullets, mortar shells, artillery.
Yeah.
Everything was hitting that beach. Everything hit that beach.
And before you went in, your invasion was preceded by a bombardment, a naval bombardment.
Yeah.
Can you describe that? I've heard that was just tremendous.
Well, we had all ships. They had different. They had what they call. We had destroyers. You had battleships. You had cruisers, aircraft carriers. You had all kinds of ships in there, and these ships they got before we went in. Like I said, you'd had they even had one that they call a rocket ship. It had rockets, and all of them was just fire rockets. They could maybe fire like 30 or 35 or 40 rockets at a time, one right after the other, and they would go in. Then you had planes off the carriers would come in and drop bombs on it, and the other ships that could reach the island from where they were at, they were shelling it, and they did it for 3 days before we got in there.
Had you ever heard anything louder than that in your life?
When we went by one of the ships, I don't know if it was a battleship or one of the the salvo go, and all that sulfur comes right out when they have the salve. They shoot, the shells come out, sulfur comes out with it. You know, that's what they can. And that drifted over. So one of the guys hollered, "Gas!" And he said, "Put your gas mask on, right?" No, one of the older guys said, "That's not." He said, "That's from the salvo."
Okay.
He said, "That's not gas." He said,
There was a moment of panic, though.
Yeah, that time, yeah. I thought we were going to get gassed.
Were you scared?
Oh yeah. You don't go in there being happy as a lark. You're going in, you're trying to save your skin. Yeah.
What was running through your mind as you were on the LST coming in?
I don't know. All I could think of was my buddy. He was going to. All we do is get to where we were supposed to go to, and then go on that big gap. But when you hit that beach and you see these guys laying there, it's already been shot or wounded. I seen one Japanese. I was in front of him. My buddy pulled by, and we were ready to on the edge of the airstrip, ready to go over across it. And I happened to look back, and I seen this Japanese, and I jumped back, and I thought he was alive. Paul looked at him. He said, "No, don't worry." He said, "He's gonna go nothing." He didn't have no head. They had shot his head off. I don't know where his head was. All I could see was his body with an open neck, from here on down. And that's the only one. And another, I seen another one later on in the island. I only seen 2 Japanese on the whole island.
And none alive.
No, I did. I'm sorry. We did see a group of them just before I got shot. I seen a group of them up there, but they disappeared after I seen it. And that was one time. That's all. We looked at it, we seen them, ducked down, and that's it.
Okay, but the decapitated one, that was D-Day.
Yeah, that was D-Day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were the first wave of the attack.
Yeah.
Can you describe the scene on the beach when you first landed? What it was like?
Well, like I say, our Amtrak stopped, and we had to jump over the side.
Okay.
And we jumped over the side, and we started going up there and running. And you couldn't run too far because you would sink. You sink in the ash. It was so soft.
Okay.
It was just like a powder, and you make one step, like as soon as you step out of it, it would fill right up again because it was so loose.
Okay.
And then we got up there, and you see these guys laying there, and all waiting to go to do the same thing that we're going to do, to go over the airstrip, to take the airstrip. And some of them never moved; they were dead. They got shot. They got shot or got hit by shrapnel or something like that. Before they ever. Some of them never even got off the boat.
Wow.
They had a couple of them that was. In fact, I got a picture in here, bringing a guy aboard. One of the guys, he was in a tractor, or LCVP. No, LCVP was in, and they had a direct hit, and he was one of the survivors in it. And they brought him. The Navy grabbed a hold of him and brought him aboard the ship. Yeah, but when we hit the island or hit the beach. It was cluttered. It was cluttered. You couldn't move too much.
Okay.
Yeah. Bodies all over the place. Everything else. Right?
Was the resistance lighter than you expected initially?
No.
Okay.
No.
They opened up.
They opened up. They come up. They had every inch of that island covered, and they waited. They waited till the waves got in and started, and they cluttered up because they knew they were going to clutter. And when they come up, one wave come in right after the other, And when they come up on the beach, they couldn't move because they couldn't run. You would get into the what do you call the sand? What we call the sand, the volcanic ash. You would run in, and you would just, as you would go like crawl into it like that, it would come right up. Keep you right up. You couldn't cover yourself. You would come right up, and like I said, the beach was littered with bodies. Yeah, we lost more people in that first invasion than like that. I think we lost about 25. They say 25% of our first people the first day. We lost in there out of 20,000. Now, the first division. Now that's all three divisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember when the first person in your platoon was killed?
All I do is I heard it. I didn't say it, but I heard it. His name was Wick. We call it Wilbert Mason. He was from Texas. We called him Wick, and they said he was shot through the head. Yeah. And that's the only one that I knew of at that time that was hit.
What was it like? Like, how did you deal with that, being under live fire for the first time? Was it your training that came back to you?
Oh, yeah.
That helped you cope with it?
It had to be the training. Because if you go in there without any training or anything like that, you would know what to do. See, you're trained. If you're a gunner on a mortar, and you get hit, or you can't man the mortar, your assistant gunner takes over.
Mm-hmm.
Then if he don't take over, then you got one of the ammunition carriers could take over. Every one of us in that section could work that mortar, knew how to work that mortar.
So your job, the training, it was second nature what you needed to do once you landed.
Right. That's right.
Is there anything any like heroic acts that you just even to this day remember about the landing, things that you saw?
No, just nothing really small. I heard of them, but I didn't see them.
Okay.
Now I heard of one of the guys. It was John Basilone.
Yes.
I don't know if you ever heard of him or not.
Medal of Honor.
Medal of Honor in Guadalcanal, and he got the Navy Cross in Iwo, and he got killed.
Was he in your?
He was the 28th Marine. Yeah.
Okay.
No, he was he was the 27th, but he was in Charlie Company.
Okay, and you were Baker.
I was in Baker and I was in Charlie. I seen John.
Okay.
I used
you
to
saw him that day.
I used to go past his tent almost every night. Yeah, he was a machine gun. He was in charge of machine gun squad.
How was he as a person?
Oh, he was a good guy. Yeah. John was a good guy. Yeah, he was an old veteran. He was a veteran of up the Philippines. He was in the Army the first time. I don't know if everybody knew that.
Okay.
But he was in the Army, and he went from the Army. He went out to, I think he was in down in Australia, I think it was.
Okay.
And he went in. His time was up in the Army, so he went over to the Marine Corps. So he hit the island of Guadalcanal. That's where he got his medal.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, he was a good guy. Yeah.
How did it hit the guys when everybody heard that he had been killed?
Oh, and that went through the island like wildfire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People pretty shaken up, or just kind of
right away when they said when he got killed, that went right through the island like that. Anybody was in every Marine was on there like that knew about it. Yeah. And it was the second thing. The only thing like that. Other thing you go up there and you see was you hear the noise and they were screaming Betty, what they used to call. It was their mortar they shot. It's a good thing they didn't know how to control it, because they could have wiped out a lot of Marines.
Yeah.
They used to shoot that sometime and go clean over the island, over the end of Suribachi, They used to call that the Screaming Betty.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was. Yeah.
So, were the corpsmen real active that first day?
Oh yeah, they were all over. Corpsmen were all over.
And what would they do with the injured?
They would try to help you as much as they could. If you got shot, if it was just a light wound, they would give you a quick patch and go do the next one. But if it was serious, they would really stay there with you.
Okay.
Take care. They were great. Yeah.
And the Seabees, were they active on the beach on the first day?
I don't know. I don't know the CBs. I don't know when the CBs come the first thing or they come in later.
Okay.
But they come in and they're the ones that fixed the airstrip after we took it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the objective the first day?
Our objective?
Yeah.
Our objective was to go cut across the island, cut Suribachi off from the first airstrip.
Okay.
Cut them in half. Yeah. That was the 27th Marines. That was their objective.
Okay.
In other words, to take the airstrip, to help take the airstrip.
And Suribachi is in the southernmost part of the island.
Right on the end of it, yeah.
Where was the airstrip?
Where was the what?
Where was the airstrip?
Oh, the airstrip was right at the foot of it. Okay. Suribachi was like on here, and then you would have the airstrip, the rest of the airstrip like that.
Okay.
And then you had two airstrips. You had 1 and 2. I think I don't know if they call them Yokoyama or something like that. But they had 1 and 2, and they were building the third. And now our objective, and the 27th Marines, was to cut across the island, and then go up to the left-hand side of the island. And the rest of the troops all took up the right and then up to the center.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Do you remember nightfall of the first day?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember nightfall after D-Day? I mean, you invaded at 9 a.m. and then...
It was quiet.
It was quiet.
Yeah.
Did you dig a foxhole?
No, you couldn't have a foxhole. It wasn't a fire. You dig a foxhole at night, and in the morning you were still up on the top of the ground.
Really?
It would fill in as quick as you trying to dig it. It was all ash.
Yeah.
You couldn't dig foxholes.
So what kind of shelter did you try to, or protection did you try to create?
Oh, anything you could. Anything you could. Okay. You try to dig in or something like that. But we always had somebody on watch every time, every night. So maybe I would have 2 or 3 hours. Then I would get off. I'd wake somebody up. They would take 2 or 3 hours. So we always had somebody awake.
Were you able to sleep?
If you could, you could. If you tried, I slept because I was so darn tired.
Yeah. Lugging all that the ammo for the,
Yeah.
the mortar.
60 rounds. That's what our 20 rounds is 60 pounds. That was the most was ever taken in at any one invasion. Yeah.
Do you remember what the weather was like for most of your time there?
Beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, good weather. It was good weather. Yeah.
Did you see the flag when it was raised on Suribachi?
No, I didn't see them put it up. It took 4 days for them to put that up,
Okay.
and I didn't see them put it up. But I heard about it as soon as we seen it. Somebody seen it. They thought, and the first flag that went up, we knew it goes. All hell broke loose on that island. Man, ships blew whistles and guys were shooting up in the air and everything else like that when I saw that flag.
So you couldn't see it, but you could hear it.
Oh yeah, we seen it.
You saw it and heard it.
Yeah, the fourth day we seen it. Yeah. Yeah, somebody said there's the flag, and boy, we turned around. We all looked up there and seen the flag up there.
Yeah.
That was the most welcome sight we ever seen.
Must have been inspiring.
Boy, you know it. Yeah. It take 4 days. They took 4 days to take that. Now that was the high ground. See, the Japanese when they had Suribachi, that was the highest point on the island. And if you take that, they could take that, and they could tell, and they could spot the troops who was down below, and they could tell radio and tell them, and they would send in mortar fire or artillery fire, whatever it was, they could win and get them.
So that's why it was priority number one to get.
Oh yeah,
them,
that was number one to take that island, yeah, or to take that Suribachi, yeah.
Now tell me how the Japanese had prepared defenses for the island.
Well, they had like I think it was about 35 years or something like that of preparing it. And all they had like a catacomb. It was just like a catacomb of not trenches. They were caves. You go in a cave like that, and tunnels. They had tunnels from one end of that island to the other. You could go from one end of the island to the other and never even see daylight. That's how. They have all rooms cut out, all islands cut out, or tunnels cut out, and all like that. And then they had openings and caves like that, and they could pop open to any place in the island.
And this is why the battle was more than 72 hours.
Well, they went in for 3 months. They tried to bomb. They bombed it for 3 months before they went in. Let their B-24 from Saipan went in and bombed Japan. And on the way, they dropped bombs or on the way, and that would be shelled and stuff like that. And then 3 days of shelling before we went in, and I never even touched them. And it's still 23,000 Japs got killed. After all that bombing and all that shelling and all like that, and they lost over 23,000.
So it had to be the Marines on the ground to take.
The Marines on the ground took it. Yeah. 3 divisions. It was 3 divisions.
And your objective was the airfield.
Part of it.
Part of it.
We were to take the left-hand side of the airfield.
Okay.
In fact, the 3rd or the 4th and the 5th Marines, they went in, or divisions rather. They went in, and the objective was, the first was to take Suribachi, and then take the airstrips, because they used the airstrips. They needed them. And they really used them. Even when the battle was going on, they had planes landing there.
Did you ever see any bombers take off while you were there? No.
No, I wasn't there long enough to see the bombers come in.
Okay. No. What was the fighting like? Did you rely mainly on your rifle, or were you operating as part of the mortar team throughout the battle?
No, see, our job was with a company commander. We followed the riflemen up. We were with the headquarters of the company, but we were in there, and we were behind them. We were behind the riflemen, and as the riflemen would move up, we would move up along with them, and we weren't too far from the front lines.
Okay.
But we moved up along with them, and that was our objective. Well, our objective was the same as the riflemen, to take the island.
Do you remember how long it took to capture that first airfield?
I think the second or third day.
Okay.
We took it. That was secured. Yeah.
Did they have pillboxes and defenses even in the airfield?
Along.
Even
they had drums dug all along the edge of the airstrip, and like that. And then they had like it would be about as big as this table, but it would be almost as deep. But they would have the calibrations all the way around it, like that. It was dug in. They had in there on the sides of it, and they had a mortar they put in there. It was a big mortar, and they could move. And they didn't have to sight it. All they had to do is just take that mover, and they say, "Well, you go 30 degrees." They say they were at 20 or 10 or 20 degrees, or something like that. Go up to 30 degrees. They would just take the mortar from one like that, just move it over to 30 degrees. That's it. Because they had the calibrations and everything all dug in, all cut in. That island was defended. Yeah, that island was defended. Yeah.
Can you describe the Japanese as soldiers?
They were good fighters. They fought to the death. They didn't believe in being captured.
Okay.
Yeah, they fought to the death. I think there was only a handful of them that was captured on the island. Yeah. And if they didn't get killed themselves, they committed suicide.
Okay.
That was their code. We don't do that.
Yeah.
We'll fight to the death, but we won't kill ourselves. They have to kill us, or we kill them.
That island was so important to them.
Oh yeah, that was all. They were up. Well, it used to make them mad. What we would say, they go at night, that they would holler. Somebody would holler back, Tojo's a rat or something like that. And they didn't like that. Because you're talking about their emperor.
Yeah.
That was their emperor. And they fought for their emperor.
And Marines would yell that at nighttime?
No.
Or during...
No, you don't move at night.
At night. You don't give up the position.
You didn't fire. You didn't fire any weapons. The orders are, and you got a code, and you got a what do you call I forget what it was. I forget what you call it.
Password?
No, when you go out like you go out. If we go out, like I would go up. We'd say we use automobiles for code. So if you went out at night, if you had to go out at night for some reason like that, when you come back, I would say to you Chevrolet, and you would say to me like Cadillac or Ford or something, and then I know you're our troops, and you would come back in.
And if they didn't have the password?
The password, that's the thing, the password. If they didn't have the password, you shot them. Or you didn't shoot them, you went after them with a bayonet or a knife.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you fear Japanese infiltration at nighttime or bonsai attacks?
Oh, them bonsais, you always feared them, yeah.
Did they come?
Oh yeah, they had them on there. Well, I didn't see any, but they had them.
How many Marines do you think were killed by nighttime infiltration?
I don't think there was too many Marines, but we killed an awful lot of Japs. There was more Japs killed in these bonsais than there was Marines. Yeah.
Did you have trouble getting adequate water on the island?
Our water. That was a joke. Our first water supply we were supposed to get. They brought it up, and they were 5-gallon cans. And we started to fill the canteens, and one of the guys took a drink of it and says, "Whoa, don't drink no more." Says, "Why?" They filled gasoline cans with water. They didn't. Somebody made a mistake in the head. They filled gasoline, but put water in gasoline tank.
Oh.
And then we had to take that back and get all new tanks, all new supply.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's.
like I was the ammunition. The first couple days, the front line troops, they were complaining. They shoot these Japanese. They weren't falling. They can't understand why they weren't falling. They know they hit them. They weren't falling. But after a while, after a couple of hours or something, they found out what was wrong. They was issued armor-piercing ammunition. Instead of using the regular ammunition, they had armor-piercing ammunition. Now, that would go right through a Jap.
Mm-hmm.
That would go through. It goes through metal. It's not going to want to take much to go through a body.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what was happening. And the first day, the first night there, the first day, when we got across the island, my buddy, we had a firing mission. I fired 10 rounds, and that's all I fired all the time I was there.
Really?
Yeah. And one of them rounds was rusty. When it went down the barrel, see, on a mortar, you drop the shell down the barrel,
mm-hmm.
and you had on the shell you had like what they called increments, and you take so many of them off. There was 4 of them, and if you take one off, that would get, and the other 3 would give you good range. The more you took off, the lower range you got. So we had this here fire mission, and we fired. So we fired 10 shells. 9 shells was good, and one was a bad shell. Because some of that ammunition they said was used for the First World War.
Wow.
Well, what we had was K rations. We had K rations for men.
What were the K rations like?
Well, sometimes you'd have like a little can of eggs, and then they had like hard biscuits, and a piece of chocolate, a bar of chocolate, and a little pack of cigarettes with 3 cigarettes in. See what else was that? A little pack maybe with coffee. You make coffee out of it. Okay. And they had 3 different. They had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The 3 of them, and each one was a little bit different.
Okay.
But none of them was any good. None of them.
It wasn't.
The crackers are so hard you could throw them against the wall, they would bounce back at you. The same way with the chocolate. You couldn't eat the chocolate. You had to melt it before you could eat it. It was so hard. They were all packed in the First World War. Because they were all sealed. Every pack was sealed with wax, like that. So they could have kept them indefinite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like Paris Island. It was
no. Paris Island at Camp Lejeune, that was good eating. Yeah.
Were you ever during the battle pulled off or relieved?
No.
No. So there was.
We was up there. I was on there for 13 days, and I was right up with them every 13 days.
Was there ever downtime?
No.
No.
No, you was always alert. You was always on the alert. Yeah. Always had somebody on watch. Yeah.
Did you receive any promotions in rank while on Iwo?
No.
Okay.
No.
So it was later that you were promoted to sergeant.
Yeah.
Which day was the worst when you were there? I mean,
my day?
D-Day, or not counting your wounding later. Was there a day that stands out to you as the toughest day, the longest day?
I guess landing at the beach landing of it, the first wave, getting off the beach, that would be the toughest day. The rest of it was just normal. I mean, whatever the front line's done, we went with that. If they took 30 or 40 yards or something like that, we took at least half of that because we were behind them. They were the main troops on the island. The foot soldiers, machine gunners, they had their business. Mortars were more or less on a protective side.
Okay.
They were. I was glad in a way. I mean, I was on the island. I was bad. I was up there. I could have been shot any time. Any one of us could, you know. But it was our job. That's what it was. Yeah.
Was anyone on your mortar team hit?
Oh yeah, we had 4 or 5 of them hit.
Shrapnel?
Shrapnel. Most of them were shrapnel. Yeah. I think. Well, Wick. I think he was shot. He was killed by a bullet. I was hit by a bullet. And I think the rest of them was hit by either grenades or shell fire. Yeah. I think there was 4 or 5 of them. I'm not mistaken. Yeah.